Hey everyone, it's Jordan. Just a quick heads up, while all of our episodes contain sensitive content not intended for younger audiences, you're going to hear a few curse words in today's recording that we've chosen to leave uncensored. Additionally, we've split today's episode into two parts, with the second half set to be released next week. Thanks always for listening. Here's part one.
Took some time to think about this question.
It just seems like the bar for me
I
is
kind
so
of relate
low.
that. All right, let's do this. Hi, I'm Jason,
And I'm Jordan.
and this is Not Part of the Plan.
Yeah, who would have thought I'd be the first one to drop the F word on this podcast, Jason?
I wondered if you were going to say the actual word, or you're just going to
I don't know.
say
We got to
something
decide if we're going to censor it or not.
we can make something in the beginning like this may contain sensitive material.
Hey, Jason. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you.
How's your week been?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, it's been very stressful, but it's getting better, and it was nice and sunny today, which is super nice, and it's good to feel the sun on my face, and yeah, it's not bad at all. Happy to be here, happy to talk with you, and yeah, I'm feeling good about this episode, and yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I've been staying busy coaching and I've been running more. I did 15K yesterday.
Wow, stepping
My
it
knee,
up.
my knees hurt so bad. I realized I should probably slow down a bit. Uh, but no, I'm just getting back into trying to run a little bit. See if that takes me anywhere. But it gives me like a goal, right? It gives me a something to focus on. I don't know. Even just right now, being able to set targets and be like, okay, I'm going to try to run this far this week or whatever. Just running 3 times a week ish. It's been good for me. So
That's
yeah,
great. Yeah.
yeah. But I need better shoes or something because yeah, the pounding of the pavement has not been great for my knees. So
Mm.
anyways,
Yeah, that is hard on the knees. Yeah, that's
well,
why I like
you
trail running. Yeah.
right. Like how old were you when you ran your marathon?
I want to say it was 2013 or 14, maybe
Okay,
13, I think. So what?
25 then
Yeah, it would
ish.
have been, yeah, 25 or 24.
Hmm. Yeah,
But I did train on pavement mostly. That's
yeah,
all I did. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, we'll see if I get to that point. But no, it's been good. It's been busy this week. But as we were preparing for this episode, just for everyone listening, our creative process, if you can call it that, is we kind of on a shared document just pose questions for each other and create a list of questions that we want to ask each other and kind of use that to guide where we go. And so I was saying to Jason earlier, yeah, Jay, these questions that you wrote for me this week are good ones. They're tough ones, but yeah, I think they're good questions to ask. So looking forward to getting into that. I was driving home the other day, and uh, one of the things that happens when you, especially with cancer, for both of us, I feel is like cancer is so prevalent. It's like you hear so many people that are dealing with it, and or who know someone who have or whatever. It just feels like a huge number of families or communities, like there's just so much of it going around, and I see it a lot of um, just reminders or of things that just bring up again this topic of cancer. And as I was driving home the other day, there's this one car on this route that I take home that is usually parked on the street, and I've seen it many, many times. And they have a big sticker on their back window that says "fuck cancer" on it. And Jason, I know, that sentiment, at least, the power of that word. It's something that you've got tattooed on your body, right? So maybe you could just share a little bit, like what made you kind of get to a point where you use that phrase to show what you feel about cancer. And anyways, maybe you could just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I I mean, I'll describe it a little bit. It's I mean, I did post it on Facebook, and I'm sure there's a picture on Instagram, but it's a dancing skeleton that's holding up a flag that says "fuck cancer." Even when I was going through treatment, I thought like, oh, I'm definitely gonna get a tattoo. Like, I gotta get something. I have a lot of tattoos. My fingers are tattoos. My hands are tattooed. I love tattoos. I just love art in general. So, um, and yeah, in the process of thinking about it, I was telling people like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna get it. Like, definitely gonna get that phrase. Fully knowing that like people, well, yeah, growing up in a Christian circle, yeah, people didn't love that word, and I can understand why. I totally understand that. My mom's not super keen on it, and yeah. So when I thought about it, I was like, no, I'm not gonna take the U out and put a star. This just makes no sense to me. Like, we all know what word we're talking about here. Like, I
Hmm.
think it perfectly describes it. There's no word that better describes it to me. It is so, yeah, that was a big reason why I got it. Um, when I told my wife about it that I wanted to get it, she was very supportive, but she was like, "Well, maybe you could." We were trying to discuss like where should you get it, and she's like, maybe somewhere where just more you can see that I think would be better.
Hmm.
Oh, so good.
It kind of is that kind of like she was almost trying to protect you from a bit of a backlash you might get.
Yeah, I think it was more like from like the our future kids, like what's that word? But
Sure.
again, like even then, like
Yeah.
you could easily just be like, well, that's not an appropriate word for you. I
Mm-hmm.
don't like using that's a bad word. Don't like it. There's appropriate time for most words. So
Right.
yeah, I think it was a little bit of that too, but yeah, I just think it sums it up really perfectly. And I just made this point. Any post I make, I'll end on that. Because that's just how I feel. It's just
Hmm.
it's crappy. It's all of it. Gritty,
Yeah.
gross, cancer. There's no better word to use that I think, anyways. But
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, yeah, growing up, I mean, you could probably say this. Like, I mean, I swore quite a bit in high school and stuff, and Christian environment, and you and your family. I don't know. You stuck out quite a bit because I didn't hear anyone in your family swear ever. I don't mean to say that like it's like you guys are a perfect little family, but it was something I
Sure.
noticed right away. I tried to respect it always, and but I mean, you probably have thoughts on that.
Well,
So
just the reminiscing about that, like that perhaps was the image I portrayed, or it's all relative too. But I do have a very core memory uh, of dropping the F bomb. I was like, I don't know, 12, 13. I was by myself. And I remember I'm sorry, Michelle, if this embarrasses you at all, but I don't think it will. But my older sister, she was asking us, I don't know why, we were just hanging out in the car, just waiting for our parents to finish something. I was running an errand. I remember her asking me, like, have you ever used the F word before? And I was like, well, yeah, once, blah blah blah. And she told on me. She told my parents. And but my dad, like you know him well. He's not one to like be this strict, whatever. He's gonna come down hard on these things, but he wants to talk about it, right? Like he'll want to have that discussion about it. So he's like, oh, he brought it up with me sometime later, and he said, I heard you swear the other day. I was like working in the other, just around the corner, and I heard, I had, the reason I swore is like I had this wheelbarrow full of rocks, and I tipped it over in the wrong spot, and I had to pick them all up. And so I was just mad, and I swore. And so he was acting like he overheard this happen, and then confronted me about it. And he didn't get mad, but he just wanted to talk about it. So I do have like that memory as a younger kid, just like there's better words to use, that sort of teaching. And And there is a wide variety of opinions about swearing and when it is or isn't appropriate, and everything from like you should never use those words to, you know, what's the intent of it, or are we using language towards a person that's, even if it's not considered a bad word, but you can say pretty terrible things to people without quote unquote swearing. So, our use of language expressing feeling and emotion towards something, it can be a way of doing that, right? Of trying to share where you're at with this thing. And cancer is one of those things. It's caused so much pain, right? Illness in general and death and all these things. So if there's ever a time where that word, I think, can be appropriately used, it would be in that context, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think like, and I would agree, right? Like, I think there's a time and place for words, and of course there is, and there's an appropriate time, and I get a lot with work, right? Like, you can definitely tell the people who are not a fan of swearing, and the people that don't care, and yeah, it's a bit of people reading too in that sense. So if people say like, I really don't appreciate using those words in front of me, I will respect that
Mm.
100% if I'm told. But I think the reason why I like to end on that word is, again, because I'm not going to end on like praise God or God is good or something, because I'm like, again, I think it's important to be real, and like raw. Like, no, we're not trying to turn it back around here quickly. I'm ending on this word because that's my thought on cancer, right? So
Mm.
yeah, not to,
And you mean that like not trying to put lipstick on the pig,
yeah.
so to say, and just like make it look pretty and say, well, everything's okay,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not okay.
100%. And I mean, there's this is
Yeah.
not calling out people who choose to end that, and give glory to God. But do whatever you need to do to feel good. But this is how I feel, so I'm going to voice that opinion.
Mm.
I mean, you don't
Yeah.
have to agree. That's fine. Like, we can all just respect everyone for what we decide to do. It's a
Hmm.
touchy subject, and I understand that. And even
Yeah.
when we started the podcast, I was like, I don't want to I don't want to swear and then have people not listen because of that. But then I
Mm.
was like, I want to be genuine. Might come
Yeah.
out. I'm pretty aware of it actually. So,
Yeah.
but anyway,
Yeah. I don't. Well, up until this episode,
I don't think we
there
have.
hasn't been any swearing. Well, maybe shit or
Yeah,
something like
something
that. But
smaller, but
um, who would have thought I would be the first one to drop the F word on this podcast,
I
Jason?
wondered
Right?
if you were going to say the actual word, or you're just going to like
I don't
say
know. We
something
got to
small.
decide if we're gonna censor it or not.
We can make something in the beginning
Um,
like, this may
yeah.
contain sensitive
Yeah.
material.
But again, like, okay, but look, we're all aware of what that word is,
Mm-hmm.
and to me, I'm not coming at somebody or using it in a way that is degrading to somebody. This is my opinion. Again, I know other people just would never agree to use that word, but like, look, like you've been saying, that is the situation that you were in, that I am in, like toward our feelings towards cancer. And I don't know. There's this kind of ties into perhaps what we're going to talk about from here, but and I know at the near the end of the last episode, you were talking about prayer a bit and how that was not something you were really able to do while you were going through cancer, or that you really even wanted from other people. Maybe you could just explain that a little bit more. I feel like we didn't go down that path that much yet, but can you explain like what were you feeling there, and why was that something that you didn't really want to receive from others at that time?
Well, I'll set the stage a little bit. I mean, and I've mentioned this before in different episodes, but when I got to the hospital when I was in Victoria, that's the main hospital I was in for, what, 3 months or 2.5 months. Like, I was quite sick, quite sick. I wasn't eating very much. Like, I was just in a lot of pain. So I just was not in a physical or mental space to really do much at all. And I mean, my wife could attest to that. Like I slept a lot, and I was just, yeah, I didn't do much. So I didn't really feel like I could write a lot of thoughts down or pray. I prayed a total of twice. So again, I didn't feel like I was in a space to even receive prayer. Like I think I was so far away from that in general where, yeah, like this is not in any way calling people out who did pray for me. And I'll turn that back around. But, there were times when people are like, "Oh, can I pray for you?" And of course, what am I going to say? Like, no. Like, yeah, you oblige and you allow people to pray. But for me, it felt like it was more for other people. It was less for me. It was just a way for people to show their support in a faith type way. And 6 years later, I can see that now, and I appreciate that. I don't not believe in the power of prayer. Let's get that straight. But at the time, and then again, it's kind of moving towards faith a bit, but I'd say my faith was decently weak, when I was going through cancer. I I hadn't thought of death much, and I just feel like cancer forced me to think about death, and it was extremely hard. So yeah, coming from like this background, growing up, where it was just like prayer was modeled as like this thing you did to talk to God, so you did it all the time. Like it was just modeled like you had to do it, and I just felt the pressure always. Like I'm not praying enough. It's not enough. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that's a bit of like why I pushed back a bit on that. But I was also just like, in my mind, I thought like, I'm not going to get healed. Like
Mm.
there was absolutely no part of me that believed that God would perform a miracle on me. Um, and maybe people are thinking like, wow, it doesn't sound like you have much faith. But again, like miracles and prayer, like how do we even know when God's going to perform the miracle? Or like how does he choose? Like these are some of the questions I eventually started swirling around in my head a lot. And I actually came to one major conclusion, and that was a lot of my faith hinged on being saved and not dying.
Mm.
And that was really profound to me. Someone kind of brought that up, and I was like, oh dang, yeah.
Mm.
If I was pretty much on the way to dying, then I think I would have been like, well, why? Because maybe I'm rambling now, but again, like I just not in the right frame of mind. So um,
Yeah.
thankful now for sure, but we wanted to mostly feel normal. Like I don't need
Mm.
your prayer. Like why don't we just talk about something random? Like so.
Mm.
I don't know if that answers your question. There's too much
No,
rambling,
yeah.
but
No, no, no. Jason, I don't know if I ever asked you this question, or maybe I did and I've forgotten the answer, but at your lowest points in Victoria there in the hospital, did you think you were going to die?
no, not really, because the doctors, like everyone was pretty certain, like it was only stage two. Um, it wasn't until recently when Viv told me I apparently was like riddled with blood clots, all
Mm.
half of me down. So Viv said, like, you're extremely lucky that one of those clots didn't move up and you didn't have a heart attack. And it wasn't until
Wow.
recently that I wish I didn't know that knowledge.
Yeah, yeah.
But so
Mm.
I think now that's like becoming more of the realization that I easily probably could have had a heart attack really easy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I wasn't even in the right space of mind to think if I was gonna die. The odd moment for sure. Had a moment
Yeah.
of like sadness, and I'd be like, "Damn, am I gonna die?"
Hmm.
but no, majority of the time people assured me, which I think was helpful. So
Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah, I resonate a lot with what you're saying, Jason, like about prayer and in the moment, when you're going through those things, it's super hard to pray in the way that, yeah, you're taught to pray, perhaps, or that you're supposed to pray or whatever. Um, I mean, you're in such an emotional state that it's more like your heart's just it's breaking, and you hope that at least just trying to turn your eyes towards God is enough to be that prayer. You know what I mean? Yeah. That was more like for Amy and I, right? Like, yeah, we prayed together. Um, a lot of times there weren't a lot of words, and both of us knew like this is prayer still. It doesn't have to be this eloquent thing. It's just kind of appealing or presenting yourself to God and saying, "Hey, this is what we're hoping for. We're hoping for life here." Um, we had a lot of people praying for us, and to me, like that, the comfort in that, knowing that was going on, was that you know, irrationally or not, it meant like, well, even if I'm not capable or in this moment, other people are. You know, I think maybe you wrote this down, like they're standing in the gap for us.
mm,
You know, we're not we're not capable to do that right now, but other people can, and that meant a lot to us. Um, Amy had a lot of faith all the way through. She never really wavered, um, even when the news that was coming to us was there's not a lot of time left. Like she never gave up praying or wanting to live, and yeah, I'm really proud of her for that. But now I'm here and I feel like my perspective of prayer has really changed. And how could it not change? But it's a lot different. And beforehand, you pray and you present requests to God. I feel like we pray a lot about things like the weather, uh, like growing up, in school, and I don't know.
snow days. Heck yes, come on, snow
Yeah,
days.
yeah. Yeah, it feels like I'm mocking people who pray like that. But I was that person, and I'm not trying to mock people like for that. It's just, you know, like what is the purpose of prayer? Is it to ask for things and get them? Like, no. It's to connect with God somehow. And, we do present these requests because they are important to us. It is like, say for you and I, when we talk about things, if we had a surface level friendship, we wouldn't talk about real things. We'd talk about the weather. You know what I mean? But like when you have a deeper friendship, you do talk about the hard things. You talk about your heart's desires and the things that you're hoping for and wanting. And so, like, yeah, that is prayer with God, is saying, God, like, please heal Jason, please heal Amy. Like, of course, that's going to be part of it. But I just don't know. Like you say, you still believe in miracles and God healing and stuff, and I believe He can. I just He didn't heal Amy, so I'm stuck with that. Like there's no changing that, and there's no wrapping my head in a logical way around that and saying, well, why didn't God heal Amy? Was it because I didn't pray enough? Was it because I was a bad person? I sinned too much, right? Were my prayers not full of enough faith? Right? Did I have doubts in a way that prevented my prayers from working? We had Lots of people suggest ways to pray, suggest things to do. People said, she will be healed if you do this. So did I do those things wrong? You know what I mean? Like, so then suddenly prayer in the way that I used to understand it, or that seems like a lot of us at least apply it, it just doesn't feel genuine or real, or it just feels like we're trying to turn it into a formula and do it this way and this will happen. And I don't know, like, he's God, he's gonna do what he does, and how much of my doing these steps is going to change that, I don't know.
But I'm sure a lot of people go through all of those thoughts. I mean, and I think the realization that I came to, which was like, if if I if I pass away, it doesn't change the fact that like God is there and God is real. But it's hard not to connect the two, to be like, well, I prayed and prayed and prayed, and then like, I mean, here's an example. Like there was someone in the community, Christian community here in
Mm-hmm.
Nanaimo, and he had stage 4 cancer. He had like 4 weeks they gave him to live, or to, yeah, and everyone was so certain. Like, I hear this from other people, like, well, they were just so certain he was going to live, and then he passed away. So it's hard for me to look at that and be like, you're almost not setting yourself up for like to take a dive almost in your faith, but it's like how do you not, in your scenario, how do you not pray for Amy to live? Like, that's the goal. Like, you're praying for Amy to live, and to for a miracle to happen, and for the cancer to go. How is that not the goal? But when you pray for that and then it doesn't appear, how do
Mm-hmm.
you not, how does your faith not take a hit? Like you just said, like, how do you not question, was my faith not enough? Was my prayer not enough?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's extremely hard. Like, that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
I'm like, so I have to almost separate them. I can't think of it that black and
Yeah.
white anymore. Like, if I die, it is not because of my lack of faith. It is not because God is, none of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, for the first time in my entire life, I'm like, okay, well, if I pass away, like, it's not because God allowed that to happen. It's just because
Yeah.
I don't know. The best way I can describe it is this imperfect world. That's the only thing I can think of. The other way is it's like a loop, a circular logic loop to me, like, I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah, Jason, I resonate a lot with what you're saying. When I think about how my own faith has changed so much since Amy has passed, I feel like my faith, it's just all the excess stuff has just been, I can just let go of those, those things that you debate and with faith, and right and wrong, and how we treat other people, and who can be included or not, or what sin is, and like all those questions around sin, I feel, are so unimportant to me. And so I can kind of like walk past that for now, because right now the core of stuff that I'm really thinking about is just around salvation, and whether there is or isn't a God, right? And whether he loves me, or whether there's an afterlife, or like those core questions. Um, those are the things I think about. And so then when it comes to, you know, prayer, and whether or not I believe that it works, or, you know, what God expects of us, it's like, look, I'm like this melted puddle lying on the street. I don't have the ability to know the answers to those things, and I don't think I ever will. All I'm going to try and do is trying to get up and continue to try and keep my eyes fixed on on God, on Jesus, and just say, like, I really don't have answers for all these things. I don't know if there is or isn't a heaven. I don't know any of those things. And I think that's the whole thing about faith, right? You can't know those things. And even if you do or don't, like, that doesn't make you immune to the, the awful things that happen on this planet. I, I'm not going to compare your faith with Amy's faith, but like Amy had strong faith and never doubted, and Jesus took her home. And and if I hear you correctly, like you were like, look, I don't really want anything to do with that right now, and you were healed, like, or your cancer at least. I'm not saying it was a miracle or not or whatever. Like, it just, yeah, I don't need to say that, Jason. That's like, it has nothing to do with us, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh no, I hear what you're saying. I'm in a weird spot in my life with faith for sure. Um, but I never disbelieve that God exists. I think there's just some like fundamental things that I just maybe grew up believing and don't anymore, you know. So, but I truly believe like God sees where you're at, and like there's just such different stages of faith, you know, like the way I look back at cancer for me is just like maybe I wanted nothing to do with it. That didn't mean I didn't have faith. It just meant I wasn't in this space, the headspace to accept it. Really, like I think God can recognize that. You know, like no, he 100% can. Like I don't want to say I think he can. He sees our heart and he sees who we are. And I it's my favorite version of who I think God is. He a father, you know, Abba father, you know, like he sees that. He just sees where you're at and he takes that in consideration, you know. It's not like, oh man, like why isn't he praying? It's like, well, he's very sick, you know, like he just loves you and he sees all that. So again, that's how I view it. But I want to say it again, and I've said it before, seeing the faith and hearing the faith that Amy had, it definitely gave me more perspective into like, wow, like it just blew my mind. It really made me think more about my own faith. And yeah, that's powerful stuff. It really is. So yeah, it's just two different paths, two different, yeah, it's not comparable, but
And I think that's what I was trying to get to. Like, I really don't mean to compare faiths at all.
no, no, I know.
It's more like when I when my gut, or more my head, I guess, tries to make a logical sense of it all. You know, it doesn't add up.
Yeah.
So I've shared this a lot with other people and probably with you too, but just like the questions I have about faith are just the wrong questions. Um, C.S. Lewis writes about that in A Grief Observed, as he talks through his own grief after losing his wife to cancer. And here's this great thinker of Christian faith, and even if he's a humble enough guy to like kind of push some of that praise away in how he writes, but he just says it like he's feeling it. And I love how he writes it by saying, all my questions are like asking, is yellow square? These nonsensical questions that they don't make sense, and yet here I am questioning God and being like, why didn't you heal Amy? Like, she had all this faith that you would heal her. And I do sense like that I'm just asking the wrong question with that. I'm too narrow minded on what this life here on earth is about to really understand the bigger picture. And yeah, that takes faith, or at least like a release of it, it takes letting go of my understanding of what's important in life to accept that maybe like my time here on earth it's just not as important as I thought it was. In the context of, eternity, it really isn't that important. But that's like this, you got to let go of a lot to accept that truth. Because then how do you, for me, the flip side of that question of, is my life really not that important if it can be gone in a second? It's like, well, what's the point of getting up every day? What keeps you going then if it's like, well, the time on earth is short, fleeting, we grow, we die. So what's the point? So when I read the Bible, guess which parts of the Bible, like, I resonate with? Ecclesiastes, right? Everything is meaningless. All this stuff, right? Like, it's just, I can totally get why the writers of those sections of the Bible, like, why they feel like that. Because it seems like everything's so fleeting. And so in that way, I'm so thankful that passages like Ecclesiastes or Job or, these hard, gritty parts of the Bible where people experience pain and suffering are part of it. It makes it seem more real to me, like, okay, they're experiencing, or I'm experiencing even part, if not even the full pain of it all, but like I'm experiencing part of that grief too. And I don't know, at least I think that's what I would just mean by how my faith is just shifting, and it's the focus of it is so different, and what I find important to think about or talk about or pray about, it's totally different. So,
and I mean, who knows how your faith will change as time goes on too, right? Like, I'm sure it will, right?
yeah.
I don't think your faith stays the same always. I mean, situations come, and yeah, I mean, yeah.
Hey everyone, we're going to pause there for this week. There's another half to this episode that we'll be releasing next Sunday. We hope you tune in again where we finish talking about faith and purpose and just where we see our lives headed from here. Thanks again for listening. This has been Not Part of the Plan.